Hello, welcome to Little Vintage World. In this video I'm going to be talking historical fiction. So I've been reading some more historical fiction recently and thought I would review them for you. Shall we get straight into it? I think so. Actually, today I should say none of these books are specifically Tudor, which makes a nice change for me, doesn't it? But the first one that I have to share with you is Yours Cheerfully by A.J. Pierce. So this is the sequel to Dear Mrs. Bird. Dear Mrs. Bird was my favourite book of, I can't remember the year, it was a few years ago, but it's incredible, and Yours Cheerfully is the sequel. So these books are set during the Second World War, and we follow one person in particular called Emmy, most known as Emmeline Lake, and she works for a women's magazine called Women's Friend, and she helps to answer the agony aunt letters, sort of thing. I'm not really going to say what happens too much in this book because of course it's a sequel, so I don't want to spoil anything for you, but the first book I adored because it really hit home, it hit quite a few heartstrings. There's quite a lot of talk of relationships in that book, and going off to war and things like that, and my maternal grandparents, they actually got married during the Second World War. My grandfather was a soldier, and so he was off, and on his leave when he came back he married my grandmother, and so their wedding picture, it's him in his uniform, and she actually had a wedding dress but then it got handed around to everybody, and most probably was made of something like parachute silk or something like that. Incredible. And yeah, so it hit a lot of heartstrings. This one did the similarest thing actually, because this one, there's a lot of talk about munitions factories and essentially bomb girls, and I've done a video, So You Want to Be a World War II Bomb Girl, I'll leave that for you up here. And the reason why that hit home is because my paternal grandmother was a bomb girl, so she made bullets, and that's what is discussed about in this book. And yeah, it again hit home. I really enjoyed this book. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as Dear Mrs. Bird. That book just completely took my breath away, but this was still an incredible read and one that you should definitely just go and pick up the series. It was so good. The only thing that kind of, for me, why it wasn't as quite as good was because I just wanted a little bit more of her volunteer stuff. So she is an auxiliary fire service worker. That's her volunteering war work that she does, and I wanted a bit more about that. But I'm hopeful for the future. Perhaps if there's more in this series, then hopefully we can, get to that a bit more. But yeah, really good. And sometimes sequels can be a bit meh, but this was so good. So if you are wanting a book set home front, Second World War, go for these. They are great. The next book that I have is children's historical fiction, and we are talking about the suffrage movement. This is The Royal Rebel, The Life of Suffragette Princess Sapphire Dulip Singh by Bali Rai. I have read a biography of Sapphire and I really enjoyed that, so I thought I'd give this a go. Children's historical fiction. This book is stunning, and I actually pre-ordered it. I've started to learn about how important pre-orders are to the book industry and to the author and all different things like that, so I've started to be good and pre-order stuff, and I really enjoyed this. So historical fiction set in 3 parts. The first part is set in England, the second part is set in India, and then the last part is set in England again. And Sapphire had a really interesting but difficult life. So she was the goddaughter of Queen Victoria, but she's also a princess, and when you think of the British Empire kind of taking hold of a lot of things, they took hold of India, and it's one of those books where I read it and I feel guilty. I know there's nothing I could have done, I wasn't born then, but I wish there was something that I can do. When you read about the British Empire, it is heartbreaking, particularly when you're reading it at this sort of level, when it's like a certain individual that has been affected by it. And yeah, it's important to learn about, and not to kind of delete from history, but to learn from it. And I thought this is a wonderful way to teach children about the British Empire. and the rise and fall of such. I really enjoyed the writing. I thought it was beautifully told. Sapphire had quite a difficult childhood and upbringing, and not one that you necessarily think of as a princess, certainly not one that she deserved. And she had such an interesting life in which she never kind of felt quite settled, where she was in England or when she was in India. She's in this kind of limbo effect. But then when she found the women's suffrage movement, she kind of found her family, she kind of found home, and yeah, she's a real integral part of the women's suffrage movement actually, and the WSPU, because of course with her title, it packed a political punch, didn't it, when she was doing it. And she lived at Hampton Court, obviously not in the palace, but she lived like one of the houses on the green. And she used to hand out the Votes for Women newspaper that was part of the WSPU, and there is a picture of her handing them out, which is wonderful. So yeah, highly recommend this one, not just to, you know, children, but I would actually say for anybody that's interested in women's suffrage movement or learning about the British Empire. This is a great one. At the bottom has these wonderful images throughout. So that one is of England. And let's find the one and that's from India. Wonderful. And last but not least, something a bit unusual for my historical fiction books, because this is a graphic novel. I would say it's probably more of a comic book actually. This is Corpse Talk Season 1. So this is essentially like someone is going to host, Adam Murphy. He is your interviewer, and he goes to interview dead people. Which I know it sounds bonkers, but so you get these comic strips here, and each kind of page or couple of pages is him interviewing a dead person and talk about their achievements and things. So we have Amelia Earhart there. Who else fun do we have? Oh, we've got Marie Curie there. You know, she was interesting. King Tut, Boudica or Boadicea, depending on how you pronounce it. Florence Nightingale, you know, big names. This was fun. I did like this. I did definitely make a boo-boo with this because I read it pretty much in like one go. Don't do that. Just read one or two, put it down. Read one or two, put it down. But yeah, it was fun and an interesting way to learn about various people and just have a laugh with it really. And I liked it. So yeah, there we go. Those are my historical fiction books that I have read recently. Let me know what historical fiction books you have read recently, and I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye for now.